In this video, we're going to look at interpreting functions. So we have the graph of a function f and g shown over here in the image. When we look at this graph, we have to recognize first which function is which. So g right here is next to the blue line. So the blue line right here is going to represent function g. And then we have f right here is next to the red line. So this red line right here is going to represent function f. So we have both functions graphed on the same axis, but they are two separate functions. So we have to make sure that we know which function we're looking at as we solve each piece through. So for the first question here, we're asked to find the value of f of -4. So f of -4 means that we're looking at our red function because f is the red graph. And f of -4 means that we're looking at x equaling -4. Remember, the function was f of x equals. So if it's f of -4, then this -4 is taking the place of the x. And if -4 is taking the place of x, then we know x equals -4. So that means that we need to find x equals -4 on our graph. So here's -1, -2, -3, -4. So this is x equals -4, and we need to trace that down to where we find our red graph. Right here is where our red graph will have an x value of -4. So now we need to figure out the y value. So if we trace that across, it'll be right here. So -1, -2. It looks like f of -4 will correlate to -2, which would mean that y equals -2. Y would be our output value. -2 would be the output value when x is -4 in relation to this red graph. For the next one, we're looking at the value of g of 3. Well, g is our blue graph, so now we need to figure out when x is 3, what is the value of our blue graph? So 3 would be right here. So tracing that up right here, this point would be on our blue graph, and it would have an x coordinate of 3. Now we need to figure out the y coordinate. Well, if we trace that across, it looks like it is 4. So g of 3 would be 4. This means that x would be 3, and this means that y would be 4, and it correlates to our point right here of 3, 4. The next one we have, for what values of x is f of x equal to g of x? If f of x is equal to g of x, then that means the two graphs are going to cross. So it looks like right here and right here. It's asking us for what values of x. So this would be the graphs are going to cross at x equals 2 and x equals -2. Estimate the solution of the equation f of x equals -1. So this is a graph for f again, an equation for the graph of f. So we're looking at our red graph. If the solution of the equation is x equals -1, then that means that we're looking for where does x equal -1. What that means is the y value is going to be -1, and what should the x be? So look right here. Here's y value of -1, and look the other way. Here. So both of these points are going to have a y value of -1. Now, what are their corresponding x values? It looks like this one is -3, and it looks like this one is 4. So that means when x is -3 or 4, then y is going to be -1. What is the domain of f? F is our red graph. Domain means all of the x values that you can use. So if we look all the way to the left of our red graph, it goes to here. And all the way to the right of our red graph, it goes to here. So the domain would be all of the x values that we can use that are graphed on this function. So for this one, our domain would be -4 through 4. We would use a closed bracket because we're able to use -4 and we're able to use 4. What is the range? Range refers to the y values that you are using on your graph. So this time we need to look at the y's. So for our red graph, because we're still looking at f, it looks like this is the lowest and this is the highest. So all of the values between would be our range. So for this one, our range is -2 to 3. What is the domain of G? Domain refers to our x values. So G is our blue graph. So our x values go from here to here. So from left to right, we can use -4 all the way up to 3. And again, we use our close bracket because we're able to use -4 and we're able to use 3. What is the range of G? The range is the y values. The y values that correlate to our function G, which in this case is our blue graph. So it looks like the lowest G goes is right here, and the highest is right here. So the range starting from the lowest, it looks like 0.5, and it goes all the way up to 4 on the y-axis. All of the values right here would be the range for the function G. In question 4 here, we're given an equation. We have G of t equals 4t minus t squared. This time, instead of looking at the graph, we are going to be using our equation. So G of 3, well, it was G of t, and now I have G of 3, which means t is equal to 3. So that means that we need to rewrite what we have, but take out the t's and put in 3 instead. That will look like G of 3 equals 4, take out the t, minus, take out the t, keep your squared. In the place of t, we're putting 3. 4 times 3 is 12. 3 squared is 9. 12 minus 9 is 3. G of -1. So that means t is equal to -1. So that means that we need to take out our t, put in parentheses, put in a parenthesis. And what do we fill the parenthesis in with? Well, we are told that G of -1. So that means t is equal to -1. 4 times -1 gives us -4. -1 squared is 1. So 4 minus 1. -4 minus 1 gives us -5. Then it asks us for G of x. So same thing. Take out your t, put in a parenthesis, and now you fill in your parenthesis with the value you're given. In this case, we're given x. And that x is from right here. So if we take out our parenthesis, or if we take out our t and put in our x, we'll get 4x minus x squared. So G of x would equal 4x minus x squared. Now it's asking us to put in x minus 2. Same process. Take out your t, put in a parenthesis, and then you fill your parenthesis with what you have right here. So fill our parenthesis with x minus 2. Now x minus 2 squared means that we need to find x minus 2 times x minus 2. Because the second power is on the x minus 2. So that means we are squaring. So this will look like G of x minus 2 is equal to 4x minus 8, because we can distribute, minus x times x is x squared. X times 2 is minus 2x. 2 times x is minus 2x again. 2 times 2 is positive 4. So we'll have 4x minus 8. You can distribute your negative, so minus x squared, plus we have -2x minus 2x gives us -4x. Distribute our negative, so that gives us positive 4x plus 4. cleaning up a little bit, looks like we have a negative x squared from right here. We have positive 4 and positive 4, which is going to give us positive 8. And then we forgot to distribute our negative right here. Minus from right here, distribute this negative to right here. Then we have negative 8 minus 4 gives us negative 12. So g of x minus 2 is going to look like negative x squared plus 8x minus 12. For part E, we're trying to, this time, put in x plus h. I'm going to do it above so that I have a little bit of room. So g of x plus h means that we write our equation, take out our t, put in our parenthesis, and in for our parenthesis, we put x plus h. So it look like that. We can leave that one there. You could FOIL it down just like we did for part D, but this one won't simplify like it did in part D, so you can leave it if you'd like. And then the last one we have is part F. And this time we want g of x, the quantity squared. So that means that you replace your t with x, just like we did before. So 4x, and then we have our x squared. But then see how it is in a bracket and a bracket squared? So we do a bracket and a bracket squared. So it'll look like this. If you wanted to FOIL it down, you could. You would have 4x minus x squared, quantity squared. And if you FOIL that through, you'll get 16x squared minus 8x cubed. 6 and then plus x to the 4th.